Hello, everyone. This is Aisha with Self-Care by Aisha, and today I'm here to bring you a webinar. I'm going to get right to it, get right into it, so you can get the most value you can from this 45 minutes that I'm going to share with you. So really what I'm doing here is that I have a keynote speech coming up, and I want to practice, right? So I thought, like, a lot of you don't get to experience what I do, so I want to show you what I really do. All right, so let me know in the chat if you can see these slides, but I'm sure you can. So today's topic is more than massages, self-care as a tool for personal resilience. So our objectives today are to identify the four most common issues leading to sustained stress in the social sector, to employ a new mindset that helps people sustain careers in community-based programs, and the 5-step Prioritize You formula that's going to help you build or revise a personalized self-care plan. So if you're not in the social sector, that's okay, because all of this applies to just about everyone. So I have a question. How many of you have leased a car before? If you've leased a car, make sure you type that into the chat box. Let me know that you have leased a car before. Okay? All right, let me know if you've leased a car. Because if you have, you know that, a lease contract is very different than when you buy a car. And a lot of people are leasing cars. Like in 2016, car leases hit an all-time high. So let's look at how they entice you, right? So they tell you that it's a new year, get a new car. It's only $179 a month for 24 months, no security deposit, no down payment, and no first month's payment, right? So really 23 payments. So why would they do something like that? This doesn't make any sense. Like, why would they give people such a great deal? Because it's all about how this lease contract works, right? So this is how it works. You get this car at this low monthly rate, but there's a catch to it. The dealer wants you to bring back the car at the end of the 24 months, and they want it in the best condition that it can be because they're going to resell it. And they can't resell a hoopty. They can't resell a piece of junk. So in order to have this deal, you have to agree to certain things. You have to agree to not having much outside wear and tear, like not a lot of wear and tear on your outside. They want it to look smooth, not a lot of dents and dings. And if you do have them, then there's a charge for that. You have to pay. If you then have the scheduled maintenance, you have to make sure that you bring the car in for oil changes and things of that nature, and you have to bring it actually to the dealership to do this because they want to make sure you're doing it. And the last thing is that they give you a certain amount of miles. So this actually this lease is pretty generous. It gives you 20,000 miles for the year, but if you go over that, it's 0.25 25 cents per mile, right? That's what happens if you go over your mileage. And so they do this because they know at some point, if you go over these, if you don't do your scheduled maintenance and you go over this mileage, like you drive too many miles in 1 year, then the car loses its value. It's not valuable for resale. It's not in the great condition that it should be after 2 years. After 2 years, it's going to be in a condition that it shouldn't be. It's going to be more worn out than it should be after the 2 years. So that's why they put all these stipulations on it. And they have figured out, like, to a science, because they know what, we know the actual value of cars. You can put a dollar amount on it. So they know exactly, like, how much you can drive it, when you need to get the scheduled maintenance, like all of that, they can figure out and give you this deal because they know what exactly the limits are to retain value in this car. So let's talk about a different car. I want you to close your eyes for a second. So this is the car that you've had for a while. It may be paid off, it might not. It has a lot of miles on it, and it seems to be breaking down all of the time. And at this point, you're like, I don't even want to fix anything else on this car. So this is the car that you probably have stopped going for the scheduled maintenance. You might be getting an oil change, maybe, but not much more than that. There's so many miles on this car already, as I just stated, and it's the car that you use from A to B because it's not in good shape, right? It's not the car you use to go on a road trip. It can't take you very far. It takes you from A to B, and that's about it. So open your eyes, and that car is called a hoopty, right? So in this picture, this person can't fix the door anymore and they can't even order at the drive-thru because they have to open the door to do that. They can't get the window down. The rear view mirror is missing, and there's lots of dents and dings. And for a lot of us, we treat ourselves like this hoopty. We don't treat ourselves like the lease car, because the lease car, we have to baby it because we're worried about like showing it back to the dealer and want to keep our value. The lease car is the thing that we've given up on. We've driven it too many miles. We stopped caring about the dents and dings, and we're not doing that scheduled maintenance. And so if that is you, definitely type me in something in the chat and say, yes, Aisha, I have been treating myself like a hoopty. Go ahead and type that right into the chat. So that's the question. So how are you treating yourself? Which way are you treating yourself, like that hoopty? Or are you doing everything you're supposed to do and really looking at how much mileage you're putting on your life? Because all of us are not doing that. So this is 2013 Aisha. I was a high achiever. I had a high position in my company. I was also doing lots of stuff in the community. I was the board president of one board, and I sat on 3 other boards because I'm committed to doing the community work. I am not an armchair activist. I'm out there on the front lines, and I'm also a married dog mom, right? So, this was my life. And that's a life for many of you, but my problem was that I had no scheduled maintenance. I was doing all of that, and there was really no scheduled maintenance. I might get my nails done. Back then I had long hair, and it was all tangled and matted all the time because I didn't have time to like comb it out and wash it, or I didn't make time for it as often as I could. And so as a result, I ended up like that Pepto-Bismol commercial from the 80s. It's like heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, nausea, but I didn't have that last thing that they talk about. Thank God. But then I had other stuff: rapid weight loss, high blood pressure, panic attacks, and irritability. Like that, the orange side of the slide is like, that's when it went really, really bad. The first side of the slide, the left side, I was dealing with that stuff because I didn't really think of it as a problem, but the rapid weight loss, the super high blood pressure, the panic attacks, at the time I didn't even know they were panic attacks, the irritability, that was the stuff that really scared me because that was just not like me. And I was doing all this because I wanted to make a difference. It's fine if, you work really hard because you want to make money, like no shade to that. But I was doing this because I wanted to make a difference. So for me, it was kind of like, well, I can't take a break because the people I serve don't get a break from their circumstances. That's the mindset that I had. And so this picture is of the AIDS quilt on the National Mall. And a lot of the work I do is in HIV. And so I'm thinking about all these people living with HIV who come to these meetings and doing all the stuff that I do. And I know that they, their health, for some of them, like they're not that healthy. So I'm like, well, if they can get here, I can get here. But that was a comparison I know now I shouldn't have been making. I need to think about myself and say, how do you feel? Do you feel well enough to do this? Are you taking enough breaks? Do you have time to do this? All of that was something I need to consider. But I know for many of us, this is the mentality that we have in the social sector. How could I take a break? Because the people I serve don't get a break from their circumstances. So after all of the things that I showed a few slides ago about how sick I was, that happened for that really, really bad stuff around the panic attacks and irritability. That was a good 6 months going. Then I had to take off 2 months from work because I was that sick. Literally, my boss was like, don't come back until the doctor said you can come back. Like, that's how committed I was. I couldn't see a reason why I needed to stay home when there's so much to do, so much to fight for in this world. So after towards the end, I had to go back to work. I'm not independently wealthy, so I had to figure out what to do. So towards the end of that, my doctor suggested that I see a therapist, and I was willing to do whatever. So I was like, sure, no problem. If you think I have anxiety, let me find out. Like, I was like, I wanted a cure. I wanted to feel better because I wanted to go back to, my life. I was really at that point in time, my brain was just like, oh my God, are you going to like never be able to work again because you have some mysterious illness? Thanks, Dr. Google. And so on January 1st, 2014, I decided that I was going to just start very small. And the way I was going to start small was by clearing the clutter out of my office. This is where you see where we are now. And as I was clearing that clutter, I found something that my dad had given to me. He had passed away from a stroke. And this prayer or poem was all about the things I was going through. So I'm going to look to the side because it's over here. So first thing was, God, I need the sense of time. And it says, always I have an underlying anxiety about things. And I was like, oh my goodness, I just got diagnosed with anxiety 5 days ago. Okay. Go to the second paragraph and it says, I need a sense of order. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm organizing my office right now. And then it said, I need a sense of the future. And that was really like thinking about, okay, so where do I go from here? I've been sick for so long. Where do I go from here? And that's when I decided if I could just start doing little things every day, I would feel better. And my therapist had also talked to me about awareness. So I started to pay attention to like, when did I feel bad? When did I feel better? What might I think could be going on in my life that could be causing these symptoms, since it didn't seem to have like a biological basis. And I discovered self-care and I started doing it every single day. And I started doing the type of self-care that matched my problems. So within 6 months, I got off 6 medications that I was used to manage my issues. So anxiety medication, high blood pressure medicine for acid reflux. There were several anxiety medications. Like, I was able to get off of all of those things. And then when I went back to work, I was demoted because they're like, well, you can't handle this. But it was through my self-care that I started working on a lot of the things that were internal, like being more organized, being on time, not saying yes to everything, making sure I didn't put too much on my plate. And as a result, I was promoted past what I had, past the position that I had before. And in my performance review, they noted like all of the things that I've been working on. They noted that those were improved. And the person who was supervising me at this time wasn't the person who was supervising me when I got sick. So they didn't even know about my sickness. And they actually were able to see all of my changes. And then I just became much more effective in my volunteer role. And I say role. I had to choose one. I could not be in the streets doing everything for every injustice. I had to choose one and give my all to that. And I was much more effective in that. And then I could leave space for other people who want to serve. Okay, so I'm stressed out. So let's talk about stress. And so there's a lot of definitions of stress. And like every week I find one that I love even more. So this is a definition of stress I'm going to be using for the next little while. And so stress is a condition or feeling experienced when a person perceives that demands exceed the personal and social resources the individual is able to mobilize. And so I really do like to think of stress as like an imbalance of energy, that you are too depleted to be your best self, right? There's just so much going on that you're getting depleted. That's really what burnout is about, right? And so you're experiencing or you perceive that you don't have enough to do what you need to do. And so, but that's very, very common, right? That's very, very common. And it's interesting that like there was an American Psychological Association studying on stress, and a lot of the money and work are two that are at the top. The future of our nation, like we're worried about that. So that's why I had to be in the streets, trying to do stuff, right? And so, and it's interesting that things are changing, because before money and work used to be at the top, and now like the future of our nation, the future of America is something that 6 in 10 adults are, worried about, this social divisiveness. And so that's so important, because that's why we have to keep our stress levels low, because that's not something that we can like really control, that. And so you have to make sure that you are well enough, that you have energy enough, that you have clarity enough, that, those kinds of things are not continuing to drain you when there's so much other stuff that is going on in your life. So that study was done by the American Psychological Association. And so that was just a quantitative study where people, checked boxes. But what's really behind that? And so I did a study last fall, and here's some of the things that people said, like, that's really stressing them out. And so, like, type me a comment if any of these are familiar to you. So type familiar if any of these are familiar to you. So first thing is that, someone said it all comes down to the frustration of fitting 75 hours of life into a 24-hour period, right? So just having too much to do, and taking on too much, and realizing that, I'll never be able to get it all done. For other people, it has to do with like other responsibilities, like caring for an elderly mother with little to no support from anyone else, especially family. Like some of us have to, we work, and then we have to take care of others, right? We definitely do that. Alrighty. So then next we have other people. Some people are just not managing their stress and allow themselves to feel overwhelmed. There's just so much to do that, like, I can't even stop and pause and manage my stress. I can't even figure out what to do, feel sort of paralyzed. And then for other people, this is one that I wasn't expecting, was that, financial issues are part of the stress. And it's not necessarily people who don't have enough, right? I heard from a few people like that, but most people had enough. They are just trying to get their finances in order. They might need to get their credit better so they can buy a house. They may need to start saving. And so they're trying to figure out how to budget, how to coupon or whatever. And that's just another thing that takes up mental space for them. So, for some people who don't have enough, that's going to be stressful. But even people who seem to have enough, trying to figure out to make the best decisions about your finances, or when you're moving from not enough to having enough, like, what do you do with that? People definitely express those financial issues. And especially when you think that self-care costs money, like, well, then when am I going to find the money for that luxury, is how people think about it. So I'm here to tell you today about the number one thing you can do to keep stress from turning into illness, and it's to have a self-care plan. And when I say a plan, it's something that you practice daily, no matter your current stress level. Because the idea is to develop a muscle, just like we brush our teeth every day. We check in with ourselves and try to manage our stress. So how many of you have a self-care plan or routine? If you have one, type yes in the chat. And if you don't have one, go ahead and type no. And if you do have a self-care plan, a lot of times it might look like this: manicures, spa days, and things of that nature. And I really, really do like the spa. Like, I was looking at my face yesterday and I'm like, I need to get in for a facial, right? Because I felt like, my skin could be a little brighter. But that going to the spa and getting that facial, that is not something that's going to solve all of those things that we talked about a few slides ago. It's not going to help you take better care of your mother. It's not going to help you with your finances. It's not going to help you deal with the 75 things that you have to do. And so it's important, like beauty routines and pampering are important, because you want to look good, because when you look good, you do feel better. But it's only one very, very tiny piece of the puzzle. Think of it as just like the tiny, tiny tip of a triangle. So when self-care only looks like massages and manicures, it's like washing your car and never addressing what's under the hood and thinking your car is going to run optimally, right? So we talked about the hoopty, right? So we don't, we give up on that car And we don't expect it to run off optimally. We are like, we're going to drive this car till the wheels fall off, right? But we can't do that with our lives. We can't let the wheels fall off. Like that is just not an option at all, right? So when it comes to our lives, we have to think about our internal maintenance, our scheduled maintenance. We have to think about how much mileage are we putting on our lives? Are we running ourselves ragged? And so this is a quote that really stuck out to me when I first kind of tuned into this idea of what self-care could really be and this word self-care. And so this is from Audre Lorde. She's an African-American author. And it says, caring for myself is not self-indulgence. It's self-preservation, and that's an act of political warfare. And so what's important about this is like, don't think of it as self-indulgent. It's self-preservation, right? This is how we make it through to spend time with our children, spend time with our loved ones, be able to do our sewing, be able to do our knitting. Like we have to have enough energy for that. And as women, as people of color, like preserving ourselves is so important because as I mentioned, a lot of us are very, very active. A lot of us see injustice, right? And so if we're going to have space for like our daily needs, going to work, family, and fighting injustice, we have to figure out that balance. We have to figure out how we have enough energy, and self-care is the thing that can help you do that. All right. So let's talk about what a self-care plan looks like because people are saying that they do not have one. And in fact, I'm not actually going to talk about what a self-care plan looks like. That's not true. I'm going to talk to you about the steps you need to take to make a plan, to make sure that you're not just reading random blogs and saying like, oh, that sounds great, when whatever you pick has nothing to do with what's going on in your life. So let's talk about the 5 steps of the Prioritize You self-care planning system. All right, so the first thing you have to do is prioritize your vision. And what that means is that we need to know where we're going because everyone's life is different. So someone might be on the career track, another person might be on the mom track, someone else might be trying to quit their job altogether. And so you have to figure out the vision of your life. And that is the thing that you need to use to make your decisions. So there was once a job that I took that I probably wouldn't have taken if I had a vision because it was a job that that required long hours. And as we talked about, I was doing community work, right? So I was having trouble doing both community work and working long hours. And so if I had a vision for my life, it might have said something like about how much I value my community work. And I might have said, this is not the right job. It's going to take me away from my community work. And I was trying to do both, and that was my downfall. So how do you actually operationalize this? So when I say a vision, what you need to do is create an inspiring, positive affirmation statement with a destination. And what that really means is that you want something really, really positive, but you want it to also say like what you want to be, where you want to go, because we have to be able to get there. And it should focus on your values, what's important to you, not what's important to other people. It should focus on feelings, like how do you want to feel as well. So not just like I am a director at XYZ company. It's like I'm a director at XYZ company who has a calm and balanced and peaceful workplace, that kind of thing. And then, and knowing what you're focusing on will help you experience it faster because it's like, if you know where you're going, you can guide yourself there, as opposed to if you don't know where you're going, you're kind of like the boat that's just like floating in the ocean with no destination. And so you'll be able to make huge quantum leaps once you have a destination. So once I had this vision and knew what was important to me, then that's how I was able to like get off the medicines really quickly and like get the job that worked for me. So the next thing you have to do is prioritize your awareness, because a lot of times we're on autopilot and we're like, I don't know why I feel this way. I don't know why I feel so stressed. And because we're on autopilot, or we just believe that every day has to be stressful, so we don't think about doing anything different or that it could be different. So what you need to do is a 1-day time audit. So you need to monitor your activities and feelings for a day and kind of check in with yourself, figure out what's draining your energy, what what are deposits for energy, what are withdrawals from your energy. Keep doing that. And then take it one step at a time. Like within the next 24 hours, your job is to stop doing one thing that drains you, or get rid of one person that drains you, if you can do that, right? Because sometimes we just do things and we don't think about it. So just think about stop doing one thing that drains you in the next 24 hours. The next thing you have to do is prioritize your time, right? So you have to make room for your vision and the things that are most important to you. So you need to get a calendar that works. And so because I was so stuck on like being in a digital world, like I kept trying to keep a digital calendar. It wasn't working for me, but everyone's like, go digital. And once I went analog, that was working with me. And now I always know what's on my plate. In fact, if I don't have my notebook, if I leave it somewhere, I'm like at a loss because everything is so well detailed in there. And so that means like I'm giving myself so much brain space now by not trying to keep up with everything in my head. It also allows you like to know to take things off your plate. Like once you prioritize your time, you're like, okay, that thing that I've been doing every week for 2 hours for the last 3 years, that was for a goal that I've already reached. So say goodbye to that. So you need to do that. And then it helps you address procrastination as well. Because you want to make sure that you are not having free time that's with guilt, right? So you're binge watching Netflix when you think you have something else to do. If you go ahead and do the thing and don't let it linger, that's my favorite phrase for myself when I see myself procrastinating. I think of that song by the Cranberries, Do You Have to Let It Linger? And no, you don't have to let it linger. Do it. So then when you start binge watching that Netflix show, you don't have to think about the thing that you're not doing, right? Like just don't think about it anymore. Just go ahead and do the thing. Now, I will put a caveat on that. Like if your energy is really low, you may not be of much value to the task at hand. But if you find yourself truly procrastinating when you know you have energy to do the thing, do the thing. Number 4 is prioritize your activities. And so here, I see a typo in my slides. I have to fix it later. Okay, so here we're going to think about like, okay, so when are we going to be able to do these self-care activities? Because we figured out what our issues are in the awareness piece. Then we tried to find some time, and then what are you going to do, right? So once you prioritize your awareness and you know some of the places that are draining, you either get rid of them or figure out like how do you fill your cup up around them. So I really, really think everyone needs to have an inspiring morning routine, because like in the morning, that's how we start off our day. And that's the time when most of us are going to be at home, or you might, like me tomorrow, I'm going to be in a hotel in the morning, so I'm going to be alone. And that's what I feel like we all have the most control is in the morning. So spend that time to fill your physical, emotional, and mental and spiritual tank. Okay, fill that up, because the rest of the day, like your tank is gonna get emptied, right? So the more you can fill it up in the morning, you can withstand the rest of the day. You can go for quite a few miles if your tank is full. You can't go very many miles if your tank is empty. So if you start out your day with an empty tank, you're not gonna get very far that day. Then the other thing I want you to do is think about a weekly creative date that you can take. You need to spend like at least an hour doing something that you love every week, like not with other people. So yes, you may love like taking a walk with your daughter, but this is a time like really for you to focus on you. Like I don't even like, if I decide the walk is what I'm going to do, I don't even take my dog on that walk. I just have to pay attention to him. I can't pay attention to myself. And then just take small steps. Just address your energy drains, address your energy withdrawals from your time audit, like one by one. Don't feel like you have to do them all. So I'm like 5 years into this, and now like, what do you call it? Like nourishing foods. Now that's the energy drain that I am focused on right now, and doing more exercise. So this week, like let's give Aisha a high five. We walk the dog 5 times. Now some people are like, don't you walk your dog every day? No, I don't. We have a fenced in backyard, but we walk the dog 5 times. I walked as well, and things are feeling better. Like my body feels better. And so I'm really addressing that now. Whereas before I was really focusing more on the mental and spiritual aspects of self-care. So the 5th thing you need to do is prioritize your boundaries. And the reason why you need to do that is because once you have figured out like what's going on with you, what you want to address, you want to start doing some self-care, but there might be people or things in the way, right? So you have to really safeguard your life when you're the number one priority, right? So it doesn't have to be bad things. Like, for instance, someone invited me to do karaoke, one of my favorite things, right? But I have like a self-care thing that I already had on my plan, so I'm not going to go because I need to make that boundary. As much as I love karaoke, I have something else planned in my self-care routine, so I'm going to keep that promise to myself. Or maybe like Mondays, I have started taking salsa dancing because I love to dance. And if I don't leave at work on time, I can't get there to that 7 o'clock class, so I have to set that boundary. Another thing we do is we forget to give feedback to people, right? So we have people that we might have imbalanced relationships with. So for instance, this is not a real issue, so I'm making this up. So say, for instance, I wanted to take a morning yoga class, but that's going to get away from me walking the dog, right? So then I need to have my husband walk the dog. I need to ask him to walk the dog so I can go to yoga, right? So that's the thing. So you may have something that you want to do that conflicts with another responsibility, and so you may have to negotiate that with another person. So, say yes to yourself by saying no, because you don't want to give away time that you don't have. And a lot of times we are like, yeah, sure, I'll do that. Sure, I'll do that. And it's like 4:45, and you want to leave work at 7 or whatever, and 7's kind of late anyway, right? And you've like added 10 things on your plate, so you haven't prioritized those boundaries. And so one of the things I recommend for people to do is make a self-care bill of rights. It's really a set of statements that for you to remind yourself that you have the rights to self-care. So I have the right to leave work on time. I have the right to go to yoga. I have a right to not answer the phone for toxic people. All those things, like those are your rights. Those are how you set your boundaries. Okay, so that is the end of our presentation. If you have questions, we can answer them. You can also make a request to speak if you want to get here live on video with me. But I want you to give you the opportunity to chat directly with me. If you work in an organization that needs to hear this type of message, then I want you to text me at 33444. And the code you're going to put in is SCBA 18, so Self-Care by Aisha 18. And then it's going to ask you for your email. And then now I'll have your email address and I can reach out to you. So if you, what I'm asking you to do right now is so if you are a part of a women's organization, a professional organization, if you think like your HR person could put together a workshop for your organization, or the director of training, if you know a group of people who needs this, text me your email and I'll follow up with you. So I would love for you to help me make introductions to those people, because that's what I do as part of my work, is that I'm a speaker. And I know all of you come to this stuff because it's for all of these free things that I do. But one of the things I would like to do is have more speaking engagement. So that's how you can give to me, by introducing me to people and organizations that might want to hear a message such as this. So I don't see any questions in the chat, but make sure that to stay in touch with me, you can text 33444 to SCBA18. And so I've just made the request. If you think there are any corporate speaking engagements you can refer me to, you can do that. If you want to get help one-on-one for yourself, you can also text me at the same code and we can get that conversation started. So I am often on the road, on the run, and so this is a great way for us to get in contact right now. So definitely, this is how you can send me your email. You send me your email by text, and then I will have it. So if there are no questions, we will see you next week. If you're not on my email list, go ahead and text me so I can make sure you're on the email list. And I hope you all took something away from this that was of value, that could change your life, and that you are one step closer to going from no self-care plan to a self-care plan. Bye-bye.